I want to start with your role in this. Are you representing? Have you spoken to George Floyd's family? And if so, what? I can't imagine what those conversations have been like.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, this is another American tragedy. It's certainly a tragedy for the family of Mr. Floyd, but it's an American tragedy. And I've spoken with one of his relatives who lives here. I'm not privileged to disclose that name at the moment, but I've also spoken with Ben Crump, the family's attorney, as well, and looking to talk with them even more extensively.
Without disclosing names or anything like that, can you tell me how this family or how this family member that you've spoken to, how this family's feeling after? I mean, not only that have they lost a loved one, but the whole world witnessed it, just the awful way that it happened, inhumane.
My glasses, please. For them to see their loved one so savagely treated, so disregarded as a human being, so disrespected in terms of his manhood, his selfhood, his humanhood, completely demoralized and treated as if he had no right at all as a human being and no respect and no value. They are shocked, they're outraged, they're angry, and of course, as you would imagine, they're completely hurt, broken, and disturbed.
You know, the whole country is outraged with what they've seen. The video has been viewed hundreds, if not thousands, millions of times by the time this is all over. The fact that it has a connection now to Houston, it's someone from our city, someone from the Third Ward who was well known, someone who we've learned was on the '93 state championship Jack Yates football team. Yeah. How does that make things even worse in terms of hitting closer to home? How does that change things?
Well, you know, as we've said with the Ahmaud Arbery case here last week, the only reason James Dixon is not the one dead in Georgia is I wasn't jogging on that street that day. And it seems now the only reason James Dixon and any other African-American male perhaps is not dead in Minneapolis is because we were not pulled over by that particular police officer on that same day. It is a repeated saga, a scenario and drama that is real life and death. And it says to us, because this man now is from Houston, he is from these same communities that we're from, we must understand that whenever this kind of injustice and this insane lynching takes place, it's happening to all of us at the same time. And the fact that he is from Houston, Texas, makes it even more personal. People are rallying now. You're going to see a lot more outrage expressed and put on display in this city because now it's happened to a son of ours from this local community. It's devastating.
I know you don't fully speak on behalf of the family. The family has Ben Crump as their attorney, but what, from your conversations maybe that you've had with Mr. Crump, this family, how are they reacting to the fact that at least 4 officers have been terminated? But I'm assuming that can't be enough.
The officers have been terminated, but their relative's life has been terminated. They've been terminated from a job. He's been terminated from the earth, and that is that's no comparison. Yes, firing is right, and then hopefully the judicial process will work, and they get the just payment for their crimes, and it should be a hate crime. Let me add, it should definitely be a hate crime amongst other things. But even then, that none of that would bring back the life of their loved one. And I think it's very important for all Americans to see this and to speak out, because it's over and over again. There's something poisonous within our system where people feel the liberty and the right and the power to literally take a person's life, treat them as inhumanely as whatever that is in their minds allows them to do. They believe that they can do it without consequence. And until all of America stands up against that and absolutely decides we're not standing for it, we'll continue to accommodate it, and it'll surface over and over again.
Two more quick questions for you. Do you expect, I understand there's some protests already organized tonight in Emancipation Park. Do you expect more protests, activism here in Houston in the coming days as we see this play out?
I certainly do. There would be no way for that not to happen. I think Houston needs to understand we've been pretty fortunate as a city. Even in our righteous indignation or anger, we've expressed that in very controlled ways. But I need to say that as many of us try to seek diplomacy and maintain calm and cool in the midst of chaos, tragedy, and these kinds of crises, there are elements that don't feel the same way, especially when it appears that no matter how diplomatic you are, no matter how you try and operate within the lines, play within the rules, it still comes back to this. And it says to us that no one's life is valued, that anyone's life is expendable at any time in this country, and now this is a Houstonian. So I'm praying and I'm hoping that we can understand that. And I'm hoping as well that we don't just see the traditional persons come out speaking against this. I think this is what we're missing. We know the activists and we know which pastors who are going to speak out. But we've got 5,000 churches in our region. Where are those 5,000 pastors? We've got the largest church in the nation in our city and many other mega churches. Where are those pastors? This is not a Democrat issue, not a Republican issue. It's not a blue or red. This is a human family issue. It's a moral issue. And we've got to get all of us speaking with one voice, that we're one family, one future. And tonight, we've got a dead citizen, a son of Houston, Texas, and all Houstonians should be equally outraged. And if we can do that, I believe we can start making some progress, but until then, it's going to be dismal.
Last question for you. From your brief conversations or the conversations that you've had with George's family member here in Houston, can you give us some sense of what you learned, if anything, about George and his life and his time here in Houston, and how he was loved in his community? Because based on just social media that I'm seeing, he was beloved in the Third Ward. Quite beloved.
I mean, he's a state champion athlete, from the most historic school in our city, Jack Yates High School. Our church, by the way, was founded by Jack Yates. There's a lot of pride in that. And so here's an individual who is well loved, well respected. This man was not a harm to society. He was an asset to this community and to this nation. And so then for this to happen to someone with that kind of profile, it absolutely raises the rage at another level.
Alrighty, I really
Good men die senselessly in America, and every American should care.